Hello everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor channel. Please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned as we uncover one of the most dramatic developments shaking Eastern Europe today. The story of Belarus, where long-standing tensions between President Alexander Lukashenko and Russian President Vladimir Putin appear to be reaching a breaking point, is spiraling into protests, whispers of mutiny, and a shift that could reshape the balance of power across the region. For years, Lukashenko has been seen as Putin's closest ally, but as demonstrations spread like wildfire through the streets of Minsk and other cities, the Kremlin's patience is running thin. What was once an unbreakable brotherhood between Moscow and Minsk is beginning to crack, revealing a conflict that could prove more dangerous than any external threat. In summary, the story centers on a wave of mass protests inside Belarus, driven by years of authoritarian rule, economic decline, and frustration over close ties to Moscow. As crowds surge against Lukashenko's rule, signals emerge that Putin himself is reconsidering his alliance with Belarus strongman. This creates a situation where Lukashenko feels trapped between the fury of his people and the cold calculations of Russia. The protests are swelling, the regime is shaken, and the possibility of mutiny within Belarus' own political and security structures grows. This is not just a domestic uprising, it is a geopolitical storm where Moscow could turn its back on a longtime partner to safeguard its own image and interests. From the exterior, Belarus presents itself as a small but critical state, strategically placed between Russia and NATO. Its streets, once quiet and orderly, now echo with chants for change, flags of protest, and a youth unwilling to accept silence anymore. The exterior of the country is changing in perception. Instead of being seen merely as Russia's junior partner, it is being viewed as a nation with its own awakening. The borders of Belarus are significant, serving as a buffer for Russia against the West, but now those same borders could become lines of instability if Lukashenko loses control. The streets outside government buildings are filled with anger and hope, an exterior landscape transformed into a battlefield of wills, where ordinary people clash with state forces armed with batons and shields. Inside Belarus, the interior of the state apparatus is fragile. Within Lukashenko's own administration, cracks are visible. The loyalty of his ministers, generals, and police officers is tested each day as protests grow. The interior of society is boiling, families torn between fear of repression and desire for freedom, officials torn between orders from the top and the pulse of the street. The short but sharp reality of this interior dynamic is that Lukashenko's once iron grip has loosened, and whispers of dissent even within his loyal circle hint at a coming fracture. The performance of Lukashenko's regime is faltering. Once praised in Moscow for maintaining order and loyalty, Lukashenko is now seen as a liability. His ability to suppress dissent is failing as protests grow in size and courage. His performance on the international stage has also declined. Once capable of maneuvering between East and West, he is now trapped, isolated from Europe and distrusted by Putin. The performance of Russia in this equation is calculated. Putin's goal is stability, but Lukashenko's mishandling is pushing Belarus toward chaos. This diminishing performance opens the door to a potential change in leadership, either by mutiny within Belarus' own security forces or through Russian influence pressing for a new figurehead. Safety features, in this volatile situation, are almost non-existent. For the Belarusian people, safety is compromised daily by riot police, arrests, and disappearances. For the ruling elite, safety is uncertain as their allegiance could be questioned at any moment. For Putin, safety lies in maintaining Belarus as a reliable partner, but Lukashenko's reckless survival tactics endanger that very goal. The protests, while rooted in a call for justice, also bring risks of violence, civil breakdown, and external interference. The safety net that once came from Moscow's backing appears frayed. If Russia withdraws its shield, Lukashenko could be left vulnerable to both internal revolt and international pressure. Unique selling points in this story emerge from Belarus' critical role in geopolitics. Unlike other post-Soviet states, Belarus has always been central to Russia's security architecture, serving as a forward line against NATO expansion. This gives the crisis a unique weight, because unlike protests elsewhere, a mutiny in Belarus directly threatens Russia's sense of strategic depth. Another unique point is Lukashenko himself, a leader who has clung to power for decades, branding himself as the guarantor of independence, yet ironically tying his nation more tightly to Moscow. The current unrest is unique because it pits not only people against a dictator, but also ally against ally, with Putin recalculating whether Belarus is worth the cost of Lukashenko's survival. If we think of the price, it is paid heavily by the Belarusian people. The price of freedom is arrests, beatings, and fear. The price of Lukashenko's continued rule is economic stagnation, political repression, and isolation from the world. For Russia, the price is reputational damage if it continues to support a dictator facing mass rejection. For Europe and the West, the price could be instability on NATO's eastern flank. In this sense, every actor pays: Belarus with its blood, Lukashenko with his fading legitimacy, Putin with his credibility, and the region with heightened risk of conflict. In conclusion, the unfolding mutiny in Belarus is more than just another chapter in post-Soviet unrest. It is a pivotal moment that reveals the fragility of authoritarian bonds, the courage of a people demanding change, and the recalculations of great powers unwilling to be dragged into someone else's downfall. Lukashenko stands on a thin edge, with protests below him and Putin behind him, and neither side offering safety. The outcome will shape not only Belarus' future, but also Russia's role in its near abroad, NATO's posture in Eastern Europe, and the wider question of whether entrenched rulers can survive in the face of popular revolt. The story is still unfolding, but what is certain is that Belarus is no longer quiet, no longer predictable, and no longer safe for the man who has ruled it for so long. This was a comprehensive explanation of the Belarus mutiny crisis and how Putin may be turning against Lukashenko as protests explode. Stay connected with World Conflict Monitor for more updates, and don't forget to subscribe for deeper analysis of conflicts shaping our world.